And it is on to round two. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. GOP candidates hitting the ground running across several states this morning, just ahead of the next presidential debate this week. Who has the momentum? Who's looking to make some moves against frontrunner Donald Trump? We will preview what is at stake for the GOP field ahead of the big debate. Plus, more trouble for Hillary Clinton this morning. A new report suggesting her private email server may have never been wiped after all. Do those emails still exist? Could they be recovered? And growing concerns about Russia building up its military presence in Syria. What does this mean for the future of the war-torn nation? We're looking ahead this morning on Sunday Morning Futures. Well, the second GOP debate now just a few days away. The big Republican field proving to be even more contentious since the heated first debate you saw right here on the Fox News channel. Will the, quote, anti-establishment candidate stand out once again on Wednesday, and what issues will draw the most attention? Joining me right now to talk about it and look ahead for us is Haley Barbour, former Mississippi governor and chairman of the Republican National Committee. Sir, it is wonderful to have you on the program. Welcome, Governor.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for having me.
So let's sort of assess the field right here, both on the GOP and the Democratic side. First to the GOP, what are you expecting out of this upcoming debate?
Well, I think that you'll see Donald Trump continue to be Donald Trump, for better or worse. I think you will see, I hope you will see more focus on the problems of the country, the failures of the Obama administration, which is what this election ought to be about, and on what we're going to do to change that. More on public policy, how we would actually do what the American people know needs to be done. I think that's what this debate ought to be about. It ought to be about what's wrong with the country, how we would go about fixing it, and why that would work.
So which GOP candidate do you think offers the best economic plan? Last week, Jeb Bush came out with an op-ed on tax reform, and the headline of that op-ed was, my tax plan to ensure 4% growth. Is that doable, and who has the best plan in your vision?
Well, of course, it is doable. As I said, after the last big recession, we saw the economy grow at 4.8% over a six-year period. So that is very doable. I don't think we've seen enough from all of them yet. I think Governor Bush's plan, very consistent with what he did as governor of Florida, where he was a reform governor. But there are others that I think will have more in-depth plans. I hope they will be generally similar, and they will be radically different from what the Obama administration has done with its record high taxes, record spending, and what do we have to show? Very little.
Let's talk about what's been going on at the top of these polls, and that is Donald Trump as well as Dr. Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina. The anti-establishment rhetoric has pushed these guys to the top of the field. Is it warranted?
Well, look, people are mad. People are mad for good reason because of bad results. About 65% of Americans think our country's going in the wrong direction, and they're right. And it's not just on the economy and foreign policy. We're about to culminate a deal with the Iranians, the principal sponsor of terrorism in the world, that doesn't achieve any of the goals that were set out. So people have got a good reason for being mad. The question is going to be, after you get past the anger, are people going to then start focusing, okay, what should we do about it? Who's got the best plan? Who's got the capacity to actually get something done? I believe the debate will, I'm not talking about the debate this week, but I believe the overall debate about the campaign will move to that direction before we start voting in February.
I want to get your take on Donald Trump's immigration policy. You know, he continues to say many times that he's joined us, that wall around the U.S., between the U.S. and Mexico, is going to happen. What are your thoughts about Trump's immigration policy?
There's absolutely no question the first thing the American people want and deserve is a secure border. I'm not sure a wall all the way up and down the border is the total solution, because there's technology, there are a lot of ways to do it. There got to be people on the ground to do this. But the American people want and need a secure border. But secondly, we're not going to deport 11 or 12 million people who are here, most of whom work, most of whom have families. And the idea we're going to put them all in jail or we're going to deport them, no, very, very few people believe that. In fact, most Republicans think that people who came here illegally, if they will confess that they did it, pay a fine, be put on probation, pay their court costs, haven't committed any other crimes, that they ought to be put on probation, let them stay here legally, and if they serve out their probation, however many years it is, without getting any trouble, they ought to be able to stay here legally. Now, that's a lot different from amnesty because they have to plead guilty, they have to be punished, pay a fine, and it's a lot different from a path to citizenship. It's you can stay here legally, and if you want to apply for citizenship or a green card, you won't be prevented from it, but you're not going to give some special path. I think that's what the vast majority of Americans want. It's what the majority of Republicans want. And people understand that there are other things in immigration that matter. 40% of the people here illegally didn't cross the border. 40% of the people here illegally came here on a visa. And the federal government never enforced the visa. When it expired, they didn't make them go back. So if you close the border, you would still have 5 million people here who came illegally but didn't come across the border illegally.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Governor, let me ask you before you go to assess the Democratic field as well. Similar story there with the anti-establishment theme with Bernie Sanders as strong as he is in the polls. And what is your take on Hillary's new strategy these days to be softer and apologetic?
Well, it's a long time coming, and I think because she just the day before seemed totally just hard-nosed about she wasn't going to apologize, and then the next day she comes along and apologizes. It doesn't sell very well. It's taken so many months that I don't think it has much effect at all. But it is important what you say, Maria. There's all this focus on the Republican side, anti-establishment. Well, on the Democratic side, it's very similar. You know, Barack Obama has polarized our country more than any president in my lifetime, and I think since the Civil War. I mean, he is very polarizing. His results are terrible, but the left has kept moving further and further to the left. And Mrs. Clinton, unlike her husband, who tried to run up the middle and got elected that way, even though it was only with 43% of the vote, she's made it plain she's going to run to the left. She's going to be out there with Sanders. I think if Joe Biden gets in, he'll do the same thing. John Kerry would do the same thing. Of course, Elizabeth Warren would as well. So their side is very, very where we thought it would just kind of be a coronation, it has turned out to be very, very different and very divisive over there, too.
Yeah, it sure has. Sir, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for your insights.
Thanks, Maria.
Good to see you. Thank you, Governor Haley Barbour, joining us. And plenty more to talk about concerning the state of play in the 2016 race. In the 2016 race for the White House, of course. But first, Donald Trump's meteoric rise in the crowded GOP field. Just how did he get there? And can he sustain his front-runner status going into this new debate? Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn with that angle. Eric, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. Well, now comes round two, and the stakes get higher at the next debate on Wednesday.
Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
Well, the first debate here in the Fox News channel started with a bang, and instead of being tripped up, Donald Trump went up and up. The latest polls show he is so far maintaining that lead in the crucial first primary states. In Iowa, Mr. Trump garners 27% to Ben Carson's 21%, followed by Cruz, Bush, Fiorina, Rubio, and Kasich. In New Hampshire, he's at about the same, 28%, but that happens to be double second-place John Kasich, followed by Carson, Bush, Fiorina, rounding out the top five. And in South Carolina, Mr. Trump is leading by even more than in Iowa and New Hampshire at 37%, according to at least one poll. But some rivals predict Trump won't last.
These are long campaigns. I think ultimately voters are going to get very serious. They'll begin to focus in on the important issues.
I think really under closer scrutiny that the celebrity factor of Donald Trump is going to go way down. I think people are going to say, my goodness, he's a fake conservative.
Well, that means at the next debate, voters will likely give Trump's statements that extra scrutiny Senator Paul predicts, see if Ben Carson can expand his base, and judge Jeb Bush's prospects in the wake of his slipping poll numbers. But for some, Carly Fiorina has already gained the most by squeaking by as the 11th candidate in the primetime debate.
I believe we need someone in the Oval Office who actually understands how the economy works. I believe we need someone in the Oval Office who understands how the world works and who's in it. I know more world leaders on the stage today than anyone running, with the possible exception of Hillary Clinton, only I didn't do photo ops. I had meetings.
Well, there are still 10 more Republican primary debates scheduled, 6 Democratic primary party debates. All promise to be quite a show, and like the U.S. Open, unpredictable, with an upset already in the making, at least, Maria, for now.
That is true. Great analogy there, Eric Sean. Thank you. Meanwhile, Russia stepping up its military involvement in Syria in a big way with major developments overnight. What is behind Vladimir Putin's support of the Assad regime? What does all of this mean for the U.S. and our allies in the region? We will talk about it next. Hope you'll follow us on Twitter at Maria Bartiromo, at Sunday Futures. We're talking with Gary Kasparov next. Former chess champion turned political activist. We'll get his insights. What would you like to hear from Kasparov? We're looking ahead on Sunday Morning Futures.